Hi Homeworthy, I'm Kate Elwell. Welcome to my house in Shropshire, England. Please come in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, my name is Kate Elwell. I run a company called Master the Art with my father, and welcome to my house in Leighton in rural Shropshire, England. So we bought this house 5 years ago, just before COVID hit, from a lovely family who were very busy, so there was a lot of work that needed doing, and we wanted to do a house that was a project. We were living in London at the time with 2 small children in a tiny flat, and one of my boys was literally living under the stairs like Harry Potter. And we just needed more space. My husband's from Shropshire, so this seemed like the logical place to come. And we found this wonderful house that we knew could also become a creative hub for starting a new company called Master the Art. And my parents, I was very, very lucky, they decided to come with us, and they live about 10 minutes away. So this really became a family house and family affair. And as soon as we walked into this house, we looked at so few others that we knew it was home. So this house was built in 1778. It's a grade 2 listed Georgian house. As you walk in, you see the wonderful stone Georgian frontage with the blue plaque on, which, because somebody called Mary Webb, who was a Victorian poet and author, was born here. So it's got huge local historical value as a house. And then you walk into an original Georgian staircase with a hall, with my shop where I sell all my homewares to the left, and a wonderful original Georgian staircase with Sophie Cooney runner going up. And then you walk down the hallway where we've got a formal drawing room on the right and dining room on the left, where I hold all the course lunches. And then through, straight ahead of you, is my office and sanctuary, where I come up with all my ideas or sit and escape my family and have a cup of tea. And then through to kitchen with an original flagstone floor and dresser that's ever evolving with children's art and craft and things we've made or bought or found or heirlooms, and a kitchen table that's always full of food and chaos and locally foraged delicious things. And then you walk up the stairs. There are 2 staircases in this house. There's the back staircase, which I painted the other day because the runner was so terrible from mud and children. So I painted it the other day. So that's the less formal staircase, the back staircase that goes up into the family section of the house where the boys and my husband and I live. And there's another gorgeous spare bedroom there where Mary Webb was actually born. And then you go up again to the final floor, which is our guest area, which has 2 bedrooms, bathroom, kitchen, sitting room. So when we have friends staying, or people on courses from overseas, they have a wonderful base on the top floor where they can relax and unwind at the end of a creative day. So this is the main entrance to the house with the original Georgian staircase, which I wanted to warm up with this wonderful runner that I've always coveted, which we have going up in a beautiful wool. And then I found these 3 pictures in an auction, and especially the one at the top of the stairs, it just slightly reminded me of this hall, so I couldn't resist it. And I love it very much. This view when you come in always makes me smile. And this is the rugs that I was sewing together the other night to make it all nice. And the portraits of the dogs. So there's Bella, our very silly, very lovely Labrador, and Muddy, the little terrier who's now 15, who was my first baby. And this, when we first moved in, was the dining room. And then as Master the Art evolved and I started painting more and more things, people that were coming here said, how can we buy your things? And you don't put that much on the website, because I'm so bad at updating it. And they wanted to be able to see everything that we do here. So now it's become a kind of showroom shop in our hallway, which I would never envisage of happening when we first bought the house, but actually really works and was fun. And to be fair, this was the idea of my 12-year-old sons, because I'd just done a Christmas fair and everything was in the van outside and I was taking it away to store it. And he said, "Mummy, put it out here." And he was totally right. So I have to credit Hector for my shop. And as you can see, this I actually only started doing last week, which is our painted, this is a pour-free tray with the gold leaf trim. And then I got so excited about that, I malachited one, which is my favorite effect we teach. So that's new. You're the first people to ever see it. And then we've got some chopping boards and tissue boxes and these wonderful big bolster cushions, which are fabulous behind you in bed when you're reading your book. And the more traditional style of the painted bins and tissue boxes. And my wall sconces, which are probably my biggest seller because not very many other people do them. And they're wonderful. There's in two sizes, the small size here and the bigger size up there, which lots of people get if they don't have room for a bedside table and they want something to put a lamp or a drink on, or either side of mirrors, either side of the bath. I have them, which you'll see upstairs. My husband's getting quite cross with the amount of sconces I am putting around in this house, because you will see most rooms have them. I'm slightly obsessed. And I colour match them to any wallpaper that people send me, which is really fun to do. I painted this lamp the other day, and obviously this is another of our effects, the tortoiseshell, which I love teaching, which is rather fun. So I could go on and on in this room because I get so overexcited every time I start doing something new. All our blanks as well, which is rather lovely, are made by a mental health charity, a Prince's Trust mental health charity. So I send them drawings and they make them up for me, which is rather nice. And all these, oh, this is my daddy. I have to give him credit for this. Freehand painted lines at 87. He painted every single one of those lines freehand at 87, which is how phenomenal he is. I'm so lucky. And then follow me and we will go first of all into the dining room. So this, when we bought the house, was the playroom. So the dining room was where you just were. And initially this was a playroom and we hung a swing from the center beam and the boys used to swing across the playroom and it was the home of plastic madness. However, as they've got a bit older and as Master the Art has evolved, I needed to feed my guests. So it's now become, and they helped me do it, and we did car boot sales and things to get of all their rubbish and they got to keep the money. So we softened the blow, but this is now the dining room, which I'm thrilled with. And I found this table on eBay and it arrived, and these chairs in an auction, and pictures and everything that have either inherited or bought. Amazing Annabelle Pope drawing of the lion. She's a friend of mine and she's incredible. And the first time I ever got a bonus in the city working for financial PR, that was the first thing I bought with the first amount of money I'd ever owned, was the Annabelle Pope lion. I remember going to her studio in Battersea and buying it, and I still love it now. And then I love the sort of china. I've got the ones I find in charity shops, and I've collected these for years. And then the wonderful Bamford cabbageware as well. So all these things are a collection. And I change my mind depending on the season. And autumn it will be much more orange. This year it's blue, green. These are wonderful. These, you've got to touch it to believe it, are paper. So these are magnolias, and it's crepe paper dipped in wax, which is one of the courses we run on how to do them by the amazing Charlotte Hepworth. So this is all fake, but in the best possible fake way, and will last forever and ever and ever. And the same with these cosmos. They're actually paper dipped in wax, and you can learn how to do it all. And then I can never, ever, ever resist gilding walnuts. So in the Victorian times, they used to gild walnuts and put presents inside on a table. And so when you do our gilding course, you always leave with a gilded walnut because I can't resist. And I just love them in bowls everywhere. So I love doing tablescapes. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I always have candles, even if it's lunchtime. And I know that can be wrong, but I love the thought of candles, the play of the light on them. I always have flowers. And I rarely resist putting on a gilded walnut. They're probably my base layers for layering up a table. And then obviously, because of the paint finish I do, how could I ever resist not malachiting a lazy Susan in the middle of it? I change my napkins a lot depending on the season and my mood. So these are kind of wild strawberries, end of summer. But, I'll have mushrooms in autumn. And so I change the colours and the layers depending on the season. Literally, if you open our cupboards, they are full of china and glassware. And I genuinely think my husband might divorce me if I buy any more. But I'm not also sure that will stop me because I can't have enough bits for tables. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And as you can see from here, I'm always pulling bits from all around the room in. The other day on the table, I had a gilded starfish for no apparent reason, but I'd just done it. And it was right in the middle of the table. And everyone at dinner laughed because this is really fun room to entertain in, as well as the Master of the Art course lunches. It's wonderful evening. You can shut the curtains, light the candles. And it's the most wonderful dinner party. And we have had moments where someone's jumped on the piano and the evening's gone on and on and on. Because this house needs fun and parties and entertaining. That's what it's crying out for. And sadly, we love doing it too. So it all works really well. These flowers aren't fresh. They're paper, which is one of our workshops. But often I will put fresh flowers in too. It just totally depends. It's a room that I can never, ever, I don't find too much on the table. Christmas time, I put glittered reindeer that I found somewhere all the way down the table. And I remember my husband walking and going, and where am I meant to put the food? I've never let that prevent me going mad on the table of where you put your food. The only thing I am very keen on is that things aren't too high and you can still see the person opposite you. I guess that's my only rule of table laying, is it doesn't obstruct conversation, which is the main point of a table. But as for being lots and lots and lots of layers, no, I don't think I'll ever change on that. Lighting, I think, is one of the most important things in a dining room. We do have an overhead lamp, which is the Pookie Star, which I just love. But in the evening, we're very much candles, maybe these wall sconces, but quite often I like these rechargeable, this one you have to really bash, the rechargeable lamps all down the table. That's why they're there, because those and candles, I think, is sometimes all you need on an evening, and it just brings in the atmosphere for which otherwise is quite a large room. The other thing I did in this room, I inherited these wonderful Colfax and Fowler curtains, so I based the interiors of this room around those as the starting point. And when I painted it, I sat here and I thought, oh, it's quite cold, and this house isn't a cold place. I don't know what to do. And I was in the middle of a paint finish course, and I was so lucky I had 2 interior designers on the course. And I said, guys, it's not I don't like this room, it's that it's cold. And they both said, paint the ceiling yellow. And they were totally and utterly right. And now we have this mustard yellow ceiling, which is the yellow from the curtains on the ceiling, which sort of brings the whole room into you in much more of a hug almost. And it's not something I probably, although I'm quite brave, I'm not sure I'd have had the guts to do that without these girls sitting there and saying, actually, go for it, paint the ceiling. And then it was just before Christmas when it happened, and I had 3 people here on a gilding course because they had been given a massive contract to gild loads of ceiling roses in London. They desperately needed to know how to do it before January. So I said, fine, you can all stay here for free if you paint my ceiling after the gilding course. So they were amazing, and they did the gilding with Daddy, and then they came in and painted the ceiling and went to bed. So as you'll see, there are 2 church benches either side of the dining room, which our wonderful neighbour and friend made box cushions for, so that they could provide extra seating, or even when you're having supper here, you could put your handbags or something on them. There's quite a funny story with those. I was in my 20s and I was a bridesmaid at one of my greatest friends' weddings in Notting Hill. And her family had just replaced all the pews in the church to modern ones for the wedding. And all these beautiful old pews were going off to auction. And I said to the vicar, "What are you doing with them?" And he said, "Well, we're selling them off to fix the roof." And I said, "Oh my goodness, I'll buy two." But I was in a tiny flat in London. So I lived with these two pews in this tiny, tiny flat in Battersea in London for years and years and years. And now they have finally found their forever home. And at first, when we were in the dining room, before I got the chairs, I had them either side of the dining room table. And actually, that's a really good idea, except the person in the middle finds it very hard to get out. So which is why now they've been banished to the sides. But I love them. I love them. And they've been with me for 20 years. This sideboard was the biggest bargain of the room. It cost me £10 on eBay because a child has scribbled on the top, which nobody can see when I put my heat-proof mats and food on there. But I love it. It literally, and it just goes to show that actually decorating doesn't have to be expensive if you spend some time rummaging around the internet. So literally £10 that cost me. And then we put it in the back of my friend's horse box and brought it back to the house. And the rug at the end of, in a similar vein, was from my husband's great aunt when she died. That was one of the rugs in her house. And I just thought it's quite nice to have a bit of life on the floor. Although I love a wooden floor, I do like rugs on them too. And I'm looking still, this is where it's ever evolving, I'm looking to find a big rug to go under the table, which I've not yet located, but I can't wait to find one. So I've always got my eyes out. So now we'll go from the dining room into the sitting room. So follow me. However, on the way there, I want to show you something, which is this bell. So this house used to be a school. In Mary Webb's time, her father ran it as a school. And this was the school bell, but it's made by the same people that made Big Ben in London. It's the same company that made Big Ben, and it's a ship's bell. And it really rings. And in COVID, when I was homeschooling the boys, I used to ring this bell at 9 o'clock in the morning and make them go into the office for their lessons. So they've got slight PTSD from this bell, but we love it. And shall I ring it for you? It's very loud. Are you ready for this? Right, now into the sitting room. I have to confess, out of all the rooms when we moved in here, this was in the best condition. So there wasn't that much that we did apart from repaint. And as you can see, sometimes I don't have time to do everything I want to do. So I've put up lovely pelmets, which I have not yet gilded in this room. So on my to-do list is me up a ladder gilding those pelmets at some point. I've literally put them up and had them made and put a base coat on. And it's hopefully next time you see me, they will be beautiful gilded pelmets, so you can watch this space. And as you can also see, our house is a dog house too. So there is no holes barred, and I know that's very bad to let them on the sofa, but they do, and on the bed, but don't tell anyone. I hate the look of televisions in sitting rooms. So this mirror is actually a television. It's a hidden television, which is pretty incredible to see. So at night we can sit here and watch the television, but during the day it's not in your face, which I love. And then this is my table of treasures, really. So this is a lovely local artist here called Tom Hisco, who we gilded a shark for. And in return for us gilding the shark, I got one of his limited edition sharks. So that's very new. And then this is from my godmother, left it to me, and I picked it up last year. I've loved this all my life. She was in Guernsey, and all my life, when I was little, I used to go and rub the seal, and seals are my favourite animal. And she left it to me, which made me cry the other day, which was lovely. And always flowers if I can, and there weren't any, so which is why you've got lovely foliage today. And then a welcoming drinks tray, which I think is really important in a drawing room. So, you know, welcome your friends in. That was my grandmother's. There's a pane of glass missing that I still haven't got fixed, but this was my grandmother's. And so I always think that's just very important in a corner. And again, we inherited this chair from my husband's aunt quite recently, and I've just had it recovered in this very smile-inducing material, I think. So that's that. And obviously gilded frames everywhere that I find, and my father, thank goodness, restores for me. So we're very lucky that we have a gilder in the family for when you find that gorgeous frame that needs doing. These three gentlemen are my husband's ancestors, and they were from his aunt as well. The frames were very damaged, and so my father spent a lot of time restoring and regilding them. And there they proudly sit looking over the family. The middle frame actually bizarrely is metal, but the other two are traditional gilded wooden frames. So there they sit. This desk is my husband's, so he inherited that from his grandparents a long time ago. And then these are all just little treasures that we've found over time. From my time in Oman, we have things like that. So we have an Oman silver coffee pot from Oman. I always love a coffee table that's comfortable. So not only is this our coffee table, in the evening I pull it towards the sofa and put my feet up on it, and it also provides extra seating. So these, I think they're called settles, or coffee tables, settles, benches. This and the club fenders also are fabulous. So in the evening before we go through to supper, if we've got friends over, it's great because everyone can find a perch, even though there aren't hundreds of chairs and sofas here. And I love that. I probably should take the mushroom stamp, but I love a spark of red in every room. So they are still up for Christmas, and they'll be here for next Christmas too, and I love that. And then these again are more Charlotte Hepworth painted flowers, or wax paper flowers that we do here. And then this rug is actually made of plastic bottles, recycled plastic bottles that you can put in the washing machine, which is very useful when you have two small children to be able to do that. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think this is an original fireplace, but it was definitely here when we moved in, and it's rather beautiful. But I wish I knew more about it. And then I found this lion in an auction, and I just couldn't resist him because he's the same, or similar at least, marble to the fireplace. So he looks like he's always been there, but he was a totally new addition with a little mouse. I find it very hard to walk past a charity shop or an antique shop or a car boot sale. And I'm very, very lucky because my boys feel the same about that. So I can't remember the last time I didn't dive in and have a look at something. And it's never because I need something. It's always because if I love something, you'll find somewhere for it. I really believe that. I mean, obviously I'm looking, you can look for things like I'm looking for a rug for the dining room, but I don't ever go into a shop with an agenda. I go in just to see if there's something wonderful. And I very much think if there is something wonderful, you will find a place for it. And I keep meaning to do that. If you buy something, you have to get rid of something. The one in, one out rule, but that's not working at all. It doesn't work at all. When we first bought this house, we came, as I said, from a small 2-bedroom flat in London. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm never, ever going to be able to fill it. This is just never. And now it's almost too full in 5 years. So, and nothing's expensive. I've sourced and bought, and we've inherited some bits, but I found things everywhere, and I just love looking. And my father and I sometimes go antiquing together too. There's a wonderful antique shop around here, which is 5 floors, and Daddy and I have spent half a day there together looking at things. And I think I'm very lucky from him. He did antique dealing too, so his sort of imparted advice to me about what works, what doesn't, what can be repaired, what can't. And so I feel more confident maybe than some people about buying things and using them as a project or keeping them as they are. So when we bought this house in 2020, it was very much habitable but very tired. The bathrooms didn't really work properly. There weren't enough bathrooms, as is often the case in old English houses. You can be very bedroom heavy and bathroom light. So there were 3 bathrooms where there definitely needed to be a minimum of 4. And lovely sized rooms. The bones of the house have stayed the same. The bones were here, the wonderful high ceilings, big rooms, which is what drew us to the house in the first place. So we were very lucky that most of the work was cosmetic or plumbing, electrics, things like that, rather than actually knocking walls down. The only room we added was a bathroom in between the boys' bedrooms, because one of the boys' bedrooms was enormous, but they had no bathroom to share. So we've put in a new bathroom. That's the only room we've added. The rest of it has really been cosmetic, taking off the old anaglypta wallpaper and things like that, and replastering. So big cosmetic, but cosmetic. And a whole new kitchen. We've put in a whole new kitchen. But I was very lucky because my husband's obviously very anti the expense of all this work, but because it was in such a bad state, he couldn't say no, which was another reason I was so thrilled by this house, because it meant I could let my creativity go mad. And he could sit back and just let me do it. So that was great. So my personal style is definitely maximalist and layering and colours. I get very jealous when I go round to a minimalist friend's house where everything is very ordered and clean and gorgeous, and I come home and I want to throw everything we've got away. And then I realise that everything we've got here is who I am and who the house is, and actually it all makes me smile. So I get over it quite quickly. I love colour, I love texture, I love layering, I love florals. So I think every room has its own personality. Probably my happiest space is my study stroke office, which has got the most incredible sewn wallpaper in it. And I think that colour palette, the reds and the blues, I love greens, has leaked out, as it were, into the rest of the house. Definitely in the downstairs loo next door, which is also the sewn colour palette. And then in the kitchen, you've got the sort of setting plaster background, which is also the background in the studio, with greens layered on top of that. So I would say blues, reds, greens, yellows. I mean, I just love colour, so I can't really limit myself with the palette. The only row my father and I have ever had, actually, when starting Master of the Art, is the colour of the studio walls, because he wanted them bright white so that you could see all the paint better and it was as light as possible. And I wanted them a softer pink with green splashes around. And thank goodness I won that one. And therefore it's a lovely, cosy, cocooning sanctuary to work in. And he actually even admits now that maybe I was right, but only occasionally does he admit that. And I love painted areas. So in the boys' bathroom, for example, it was quite a simple bathroom. And then I went to look around Charleston House in England, which is a wonderful, eccentric artist house, and came back that evening and started painting around the window in a similar style, because I just loved it. Luckily, the next morning when I woke up, I still liked it, but also had the nous to stop there and just leave one room like that. And so that's part of my style too. And I think it's ever evolving. I never stop. The house will never, ever, ever be finished, because I change my mind, or I find a treasure in an antique shop or a charity shop or a car boot sale, or we inherit something. And then I've got and then I'm like, right, we have to change the whole dresser and put different plates and different styling and different layers on it. Or I want to repaint the floor. You know, I really want to repaint the floor in the boys' bathroom already with a pattern and something wonderful. We're about to redo another bathroom. And I lie awake at night, literally thinking, what tiles are we going to use? Or do I paint the floor? Or what are we going to do? So I spend an inordinate amount of my thought. My happy place to go is interiors and paint finishes. And how can you turn the mundane into the magnificent by painting this wondrous lamp that will totally elevate the room? So I'm very lucky as well, because of my father and his background. You know, here's my DIY SOS call to say, have I gone mad, or should I be malachiting this pillar in the middle of the hallway? And sometimes he'll say I've gone mad, and sometimes he'll say I think that's a fabulous thing to do. So shall we go to here, to my favourite room in the whole house, which is also the smallest room in the whole house, but it's my study and it's my happy place in the house where I take a cup of tea and hide. So come and follow me. So here we are, and this is where Muddy, my old Patterdale, sits while I'm working. This is her bed, which a wonderful friend of mine who owns a company called Wovenology found me one that went with the wallpaper, because this is my only room probably that I am very keen works all the time for me. And so I found that little table by the side of a road. Someone was doing a house clearance for St John's Ambulance, I think. And it cost me £10 beside the road. This chair was in a shed here in terrible condition, and I had it reupholstered and fixed because I felt that it was the right size for this room and it would be such a shame to waste it. This was a tapestry that I found in a cupboard at my husband's aunt's house and had that footstool upholstered in it. And this, as I've said before, is my favourite wallpaper in the world. This was just a local art evening that I went to and bought that, and it's a Guernsey goat, and I'm from Guernsey, and it's in the right colour of this room, so it was made to be here. Sweet next door neighbours painted the front of our house for me one Christmas, so that's there and means a lot. This was already left in the house as well, so that just came in here and worked. Charlotte's Hepworth's beautiful flowers again. My Kate, this was my GCSE textiles thing that I found in my mother's boot room and put it there because, again, it all seemed right in this room. And this antique dresser was actually in our flat in London. It was left in our flat in London, and I painted it. And come and look at this bit in it if you can. So inside, in lockdown, when I was repainting it, I got the boys to put handprints so that I would have them in my favourite little dresser forever. And this is all the china and glass that I don't want people using every day because it's so pretty, but I bring it out and layer it in the dining table when I can, or when it's needed, or when something's nice to do. So next door to my office is our downstairs cloakroom, and I've tried to actually pull the colours because I love the colours in here so much. I've used that for a basis downstairs, and a lovely friend of mine called Charlotte Stewart Interiors also gave me loads of advice on how to do it when she was on a course. So I had my hand held on this one, thank goodness, because it's a bit braver than some of the others. So this is now our cloakroom. So I very much needed my hand held on this by my lovely interior designer friend, Charlotte Stewart. And she helped me have the guts to paint all the paintwork red. And I have a dream at the back of the door, I'm going to tortoiseshell it one day as well, and build a lovely pelmet, gild a lovely pelmet here. So again, all the spaces are always evolving and I'm always thinking of new things I want to do. But she helped me colour match as well. This was a chest of drawers that was in here before when we moved in, and we've made it into a basin and done all of that. More freehand painted lines by my incredible daddy. That was my Christmas present from him for this room. And this is lovely. So because I'm from Guernsey, we lived next to Roger Hargreaves, who writes all the Mr. Men books. And when I was little, he drew me this picture when I went next door and banged on the door. So that's very sentimental to me. And then you go through here to the loo, which again has lots of fun pictures. I always think loos should be fun. They should have something to read and lots of fun pictures. And I love using my wall sconces to put loo rolls on. So that's what I've done in there as well. So this is the kitchen, which is always the heart of the house. And this is the room we've done most recently. We lived here for 3 years with a kitchen that every time you opened a cupboard, the door fell off because we wanted to get this right. And I'm really glad we did wait. So we had this enormous unit built locally, which is the biggest unit they'd ever had. But as you can see, it houses everything. And this is what I mean when I say my husband says I can't buy any more china, like every cupboard is like this. But it's wonderful. And then we had this library ladder bar put up the top, and you can see the ladder over there. And we store everything to do with the kitchen up here. So jam making, Tupperware, Christmas tablecloths, they're all in the right room and stored perfectly. And we don't get one of my pet hates, which is that sort of greasy top of cupboards that you often get in the kitchen, is null and voided by the fact that they reach the ceiling. So I love that. The cornicing up here was probably the biggest expense of the kitchen, funny enough. It's handmade in Birmingham to the right period for the house. We had put something much less impressive up at first, and it just looked so wrong. So we had to do it properly. This floor was under these slabs, and when we moved the old tiny Aga out of this room, we pulled the Aga up, and we found these amazing original quarry tiles underneath the Aga over there. And my husband said, "Oh my goodness, I know what you're going to make me do." He was so totally right. So poor man had to put up all these tiles. But we didn't know if it would be the whole kitchen, half the kitchen, if it was just in that area. We took a massive gamble with it. And I said, I think the gamble's going to be worth it, even if we're wrong. You know, we must try and we must know. And so we were so lucky, and we found these incredible tiles, did do the whole kitchen. And now I wonder what goes that way, but he refused to go any further, which I totally get. So one day we might look under the rest, but at the moment we've got it here. I'm so pleased they came up really well. They're not perfect, but I think their imperfections tell a story, and that's part of the history of the house and the age of the house. They shouldn't be perfect in my mind. This Aga in pistachio, which I don't think is pistachio colour, but that's what Aga call it, does make me smile. And then we had these tiles painted this backsplash by a wonderful woman in Wales who paints, and they're meant to be the family, the four of us. So little Arthur, my youngest, with his blonde hair and blue eyes, and Hector, the older one, with brown hair and brown eyes, and my husband and I, is the story of the backsplash. And probably the only thing we've kept in the kitchen that was here when we moved in was this. So that was originally here. We obviously haven't put that in, but everything else we've started again. And I love it. I love it. It really is the heart of the home. And if we've only got a few friends for supper, this is where we eat. This is where we laugh. This is where we drink too much rosé on a summer's evening. And my sons make jam and sell them beside the road outside from here. So it really is the genuine heart of the home. I've always wanted a kitchen with a sofa in. I still dream of that slightly. And this one doesn't. But funnily enough, it hasn't mattered because everyone's always just pulling up a chair here. And this dresser is also ever, ever, ever evolving. So this is never the same for a month on end because, you know, the children will come to me with another hamburger artwork from school that needs to be celebrated and has to go up there. Or somebody will arrive on a course, which they did the other day. This wonderful lady flew in from America, actually, who did calligraphy for our course and said, you can have craft without art, but you can't have art without craft, by Roger Newton, that she'd seen on our Instagram and done for us. So that needs to be on there too. So it's just lovely and always changing. And all the mugs that I love so much that I don't want anyone to break, so they're not in the cupboard, go there. And there was two beautiful decanters at the top there, but the owl, when it came to visit, smashed those quite recently. But we don't begrudge it because it was such a beautiful owl. And then this is, you know, my son's artwork. And then I found these beautiful old, well, they're not old, but they're modern paintings on old Indian ledgers. And I backed them on the children's craft paper and found some very cheap IKEA frames. And I think that that looks really pretty in the kitchen now. So how to sort of make it a bit more special. And my other favorite thing are these plates, which again are from my husband's aunt, which have just gone on the wall, which are all the right colorways. So when we'd finished this kitchen, as is always the way when you've taken on quite a big project, we had run out of money. And I therefore thought, we can't afford lovely lighting, we'll just have to go somewhere and get something. And I think I went to IKEA, which is amazing for things. I love IKEA, but I just bought some three cheap lights and put them up. And it was such a shame. It had totally ruined the kitchen. And so I did take a deep breath a few weeks later and buy these beautiful Pookie lamps. And I'm so glad I did. You know, it's a lesson I've learned that there's corners you can cut and things you can skimp on, but lighting usually isn't one of them. And it's such a shame to ruin a room that you've put your heart into by not doing the final touches properly. So I'm really pleased I put those lights up in the end. And I love this kitchen table so much. It's come with us from London, this table. It can tell a million stories. It's always changing with the china that I've bought. You know, I found that platter in a junk shop the other day. This is the wonderful Dalesford bowls and tablecloth. Beautiful herbs from the garden. I love putting herbs in vases on a kitchen table because you get the wonderful scent, that's sage. Figs from my parents' garden, apples from the trees in the garden. So I love it. And again, candles. Why would you not put candles in my mind? So my incredible father, who's now 87, helped me really start my career because I'm the last of his 5 children by 11 years, so total accident. And I therefore was very much sort of brought up in his studio, you know, sit Kate in the corner while I'm gilding something, and he'd gild my fingernails and tell me I had to sit there and wait for them to be dry for 2 hours and I couldn't move, which is complete rubbish. They're dry immediately, but it was his way of getting me to sit down and stay still. Or how to paint freehand lines, which is something we do a lot on furniture just to elevate it. So he was always teaching me little bits as I sat in the corner of the studio. I grew up in Guernsey, an island in between England and France, and my father ran a paint finishes studio there. His career before then was paint finishes at Colfax and Fowler when they used to do paint finishes. They don't anymore. And then we moved to Guernsey. He set up this wonderful studio. People used to come for his courses from all over the world. He was one of the first people to ever teach paint finishes and gilding. And by paint finishes, I mean making things that look like malachite or tortoiseshell or lapis or marbling. So it's more paint effects probably than paint finishes. I keep meaning to change the name on the website. And so I grew up in his studio with sort of learning by osmosis with this. And then we moved back to England when I was about 11. And I went to English boarding school and didn't see him quite as much, but always retreated to his studio in the holidays to relax and unwind. Went to Edinburgh University and I studied history, but always with a side course of history of art, so I could still walk around the galleries in Edinburgh and get my fix. And then after that, I actually went into the city. I wanted to sort of earn some money and be able to buy a flat and stand on my own 2 feet. And my father said quite rightly, I could always come back to what he and I did, but now was the time to have a not proper career, because this isn't a proper career, but you know what I mean, I sort of earn some money and stand on my feet and experience new things. So I went into the city, I did financial PR for many years, 10, 12 years. And then after that, I worked for the Sultan of Oman in his private office in London when my mother retired from the same job. But interestingly, even in that job, he was asking me to help decorate flats and offices. And so Daddy and I were still gilding pelmets with the wonderful Omani crests on. So I sort of somehow luckily brought this career into everyday life. And then we found this house in Shropshire and we knew we wanted to move to the countryside. The Sultan very sadly died. And we were sort of at a crossroads, living in this tiny flat in London. Career, do I stay working for somebody like the Sultan? Do I find another job? Or do we move to the countryside, have more space, and realize a dream? My father and I sat down over lunch and he said, look, come on, I'm not getting any younger. Let's do it. Let's do Roger Newton and Daughter, which is what we sort of called ourselves at first before it turned into Master the Art. We called ourselves Roger Newton and Daughter School of Decorative Finishes. But we realised that that was quite long-winded and Master the Art was easier. And so we sat down and we started Master the Art in lockdown, you know, on the phone to each other, building the website and the brand and deciding what we were going to do. And this house, we couldn't have done it without this house, because this house had this wonderful outbuilding that was very depressing when we bought it. It had bars on the windows and a horrible garage flip door. And that was something we did. We pulled it all back to the bones and found these beautiful beams in there that we didn't even know were there when we moved in, and made this wonderful creative space that meant this second, or is it third, career could really come out, and I could actually do what I've always wanted to do and always done, and be by my father's side painting and gilding. And from that we've realized the dream of getting some more people who are all best in their field to come in and teach, because we can only teach about once every couple of months, these 3-day courses. So we have lots of people coming from all over the country teaching, you know, cyanotype and willow weaving and painted lampshades and chair caning and a lot of heritage crafts, and people flying from all over the world and coming from all over the country to learn these things. And actually on the top floor where the guest accommodation is for the courses, I do have a lady who leaves her wash bag and bottle of Bailey's here, because she comes on every course from Devon and likes to have it here when she comes on the next one. So I'm really lucky. People have become friends through this house and through using it and through the happy bones here. And I get some people that say, I can't believe you've just redecorated the loo. I loved the pink pheasants you had there before. And they get very upset when they come back and I've changed things. But as I said, I can't help myself. You know, it's ever evolving. My favorite part of this house is definitely the kitchen and my snug room. My snug room, or my office, because it's my favorite wallpaper in the world that I couldn't really afford, and I saved up for ages to buy it, and therefore it had to go in the smallest room in the house, so I needed the minimal amount of rolls of it. But I walk in there and I smile every time I see it. Plus, I can shut the door and slightly escape and think creative thoughts and what courses we're going to put on and things like that, without the wonderful buzz of the family that I wouldn't be without. And I think also the kitchen as well as the kitchen, you walk through it for everything. So it's the door into the garden, it's the door into the main part of the house. Someone's always coming through, there's always muddy shoes on the floor, except not today because you're filming. Normally there's always muddy shoes on the floor and a bowl of cereal out on the kitchen table because one of my boys has got the munchies. And it just feels happy as a place. And we've had dinner parties here and it's full with laughter. And on a summer day, we keep the door open all the time. And the other evening I came down and there was an owl, a proper owl perched on the top of the dresser here. And I went and woke the children up to show them because I thought this is never going to happen again. And then it happily flew back outside the kitchen door. And we've also got a robin called Rosie that comes to have breakfast with us most mornings on the kitchen table. Except my husband's very cross with her because she eats all the butter and leaves her paw prints in, and then we have to throw it away. Now I'm going to take you upstairs, and the first bedroom we'll visit was the one that Mary Webb was born in, and we call it the dragonfly room, which you will see why when we get there. I'm going to take you up the back staircase that I painted the other day. I still haven't finished. I still want to do more patterns down it, but it's actually the best thing I've done because it's made it bulletproof for muddy shoes when the kids forget to take them off. So follow me upstairs. So welcome to what we call the dragonfly room, which is where Mary Webb was born. And this has a fascinating story. This was the first room we did up when we moved in, mainly because we were so lucky. My parents, my husband's mother, loads of people were coming to help us. And I wanted them to be comfy when they did. So I thought, let's do the guest bedroom first and then move on from there. And I saw this beautiful Matthew Williamson wallpaper when I was walking down the King's Road in London before we left London. And I was like, oh, I want to use it in the house. I really do. And so I did. I got it. We put it up. There was horrible fitted wardrobes here and spotlights and a disgusting carpet. So we pulled everything out and literally took this room back to its bones. We had those shelves built, had it wallpapered, my wall sconces that, as I said earlier, are in every room. And then Mary Webb Society asked if they could come and look round the house and see the room Mary was born in. And I said, absolutely. And so in they came to this room and they said, thank you so much for honouring her so much and having read her books. And I was sort of nodding vacantly, going, yes, yes, yes. Anyway, it turns out that Mary Webb was obsessed by dragonflies, and she wrote them in every single book she ever had. She wore a dragonfly brooch, and I'd had no idea. So without meaning to, this is a homage to her as a room. But I love the colours. I love the turquoise and the green, which brings in the garden from outside. Again, mixing the modern, like these ochre bedside tables, with the more antiques, like the gilded mirror. These are rugs we brought back from a holiday in Marrakesh, my husband and I, and just pictures I picked up at Malvern Flea Market. And this wardrobe was left in the house already, and I just polished it up. I inherited this desk from my old boss. So it's a mix match of everything, really. And I think this is one of my favourite bedrooms. The feeling of space, and we sanded the floors down ourselves, but you could see someone had once painted them green, so there's still green speckles in them in places. But I think imperfection is lovely. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is a really relaxing room, and I sometimes come in here to sort of sort things out just because it's so peaceful. And I love, like all this house, the thing we're so lucky about is the high ceilings, the feeling of space. So this is the bathroom that goes with the dragonfly room, so the main guest bathroom. But I have to confess, it's also the bathroom we all use the most because of the bath with feet. So whenever anyone talks, my sons are like, "Are they using the bath with feet, mummy?" Because it's just such a comfortable bath that we all sort of slightly fight to have our moment in. And again, the wall sconces with all the things. And actually, I was really tired after painting all day the other day, and my sons ran me a bath with rose petals and lit all the candles and told me that they'd put themselves to bed that night. And the reason I'm telling this story is that has never happened before. So it's also a very smile-inducing bathroom because it's where my boys are the nicest to me. And I love it. And I love this Colfax and Fowler wallpaper. This is a very cheap Dunelm Mill rug, but I love the way it elevates. You know, again, mixing pattern. Why not throw some malachite in? Mixing patterns and all exciting things. So this hallway was actually quite depressing when we moved in. This was all painted black, and it felt quite low compared to the rest of the house, which all had height. So we lightened it up by literally a lick of paint. And also I love what my father calls sort of art walls, you know, walls of pictures. And so all of these, although there's nothing individually particularly special about any of them, I think if you throw them all together and mix and match, and I have so much fun doing it, hanging them all up, then you make an art wall that's just really works. So this is why. And then things like these are so useful. This is full of wetsuits, you know, for storage. These antique coffers, really, I find so useful. So this is just a fun hall now, rather than a slightly depressing hall, which it was when we moved in. This is the only room we've put in the house, which is the boys' bathroom. And I want to show it to you because it's really fun. And I think just because there's a history and an age to a house doesn't mean you can't do fun, quirky things to it. So follow me. This was all part of the same bedroom before, but we put this bathroom in, and this is literally me just mucking around with a paintbrush one afternoon in the boys. This green is called Invisible Green. I think it's Edward Bulmer, Invisible Green. Nothing invisible about it. It's just gorgeous. I love it. And if I could have it everywhere, I would. But painted round. And then the splashbacks is painted by the same lady that painted our Arga splashback. My 12-year-old son is very, very good at archery. So it depicts him playing his archery. And then I made this shell mirror with the boys last summer. We collected all the shells from beaches, and we found this frame in a junk shop and got a glue gun out and went mad together. So that's quite nice that in the boys' bathroom we did the mirror together. And again, this is an old Dragons of Walton Street shelf unit, which I just painted to reflect the bathroom a bit more, and we had treasures on it. And our wonderful lino lord who comes and teaches lino printing here, who's heaven, who's my boys are passionate about. Lino printed a shelf for them to put in the bathroom, which is just, this is where I'm very lucky with all our guest tutors. They come in and add touches to my house that I wouldn't otherwise have. And that's definitely one of them that is a real treasure in their bathroom. So this is one of our guest bedrooms here, the one I've most recently completed. I found this chest of drawers in a junk shop and it was blue, so I stripped it back and painted it the wonderful green I love and tried to depict some of the wallpaper in it. These are from my great-grandfather to my great-grandmother in the war. They're the postcards he sent to her in the war, and we found them in a shoebox and had them framed, and you can see the back as well, which is really gorgeous, by the wonderful Ironbridge Fine Art and Framers, who are our local incredible framers. And they really thought about it and put a bit about him and things on the back. So I love adding sort of real personal touches, even in a guest bedroom. And that is definitely one of them, finding these. I think they were hand sewn by women and then the soldiers posted them back. Love putting a trim on a Roman blind. I think that really elevates it. And this is gorgeous Serena Friesen fabric, which I've then mimicked in the bin and the tissue box. I should do it so you can see it. There you go. So vintage French light that I found on eBay, a mirror I found in a car boot sale. The bedside lights are another one of our workshops, our gathered lampshade workshops. So again, you'll bring it in, and again, wonderful wax paper flowers by Charlotte Hepworth. So Mary Webb, I try and put her books in all the guest bedrooms so that people can have a go about reading Victorian literature if they feel like it. And yeah, I think this is one of my favourite guest bedrooms, actually. It really is. I love it. So this is the other guest bedroom upstairs, which we call the Bumblebee Room. No chance of guessing why, with the wallpaper, but it has the most beautiful view of the garden. So this is the one that people usually grab first, with the beautiful view of the garden. Love the blinds here, made again by our next door neighbour. And this was a little sofa that we brought with us from London. My sconces either side of a mirror with candles on, which I love. This was just a plain wooden mirror that I colour matched to the wallpaper to bring it alive a bit more. And I've spent my whole life lusting after a Colfax and Fowler luggage stand, and a very lovely lady finally found me one. So I was thrilled by that. And again, the flowers, and then the matching tissue boxes and bins to everything. And then, you know, just little touches that I found in antique shops and things like that, which I just love and I think brings everything alive. This is probably my favourite ceiling light in the house, this vintage daisy light. And it used to be in the nursery in our flat in London where the boys slept, and I brought it with me, and I'm so glad I did because I love it. And actually that was the basis for decorating the room as a colour palette. And then Sarah Kay Designs, I think this is one of her bedspreads and beautiful linens. And this was block printed on one of our block printing courses with Spirinella. So we've had lovely bits, and I found this headboard and latticed it in paint. So everything's got personal touches, and part of why people come here, I hope. Welcome to the studio. This is where the magic happens. And as well as the kitchen, I would say this is the heart of the house, because even when we don't have courses on, if I'm in here painting, my boys are always sitting on the sofa doodling or drawing or chatting to me. In the winter, we have a log fire going, log burner, and in the summer, we open these doors out and you feel like you're working in the garden. So this is where we welcome people from all over the country and all over the world. And it's just gorgeous. It was hideous when we moved in. As I said earlier, there were bars at the windows and a flip garage door. So it was a real fun project to turn around. And I got my way with pink paint on the walls instead of white, which my father wanted. I won that argument, which I also love because it's the same color as the kitchen, but in the different light of the studio, which is, it just looks a totally different palette, even though it's the same. So you get the flow, but a feeling of change. On the table here is a mixture of all our courses a little bit. So we have wonderful Lino Lord with his incredible lino prints. We have our incredible Rachel South, who does chair caning. Alvaro, who does wonderful lampshade painting. And my boys just adore him because when he was last here, he went up to their bedroom, to Arthur, my little one's bedroom, and painted his bedside lamp when we were eating lunch. And when he came back from school, you just heard this shriek of excitement because his bedroom lampshade had just been painted by the master himself. The wonderful wax paper flowers. This is a new workshop, which is decoupage under glass, which I'm very excited about. And then you have the backbone of Master of the Art, which is our gilding and our paint finishes, malachite, tortoiseshell, and all the other incredible faux effects. And when we're not teaching in here, this is a proper working studio covered in dust. Obviously not today because I've cleaned it for you. But normally, quite a lot of dust and sanding down and me creating things in here on the downtime. And I joke that I need two studios, one for teaching and one for doing. So sometimes the dining room can be transformed into a bit of a drying area, but generally not. And if we've got bigger classes, we move the chairs from over there and put 2 tables up. But our maximum is only ever really 10. My parents had their 50th wedding anniversary lunch in here the other day, and I put trestle tables down the side, and they had all their friends. So it's also very much a family entertaining space. And I dream of putting a disco ball in the middle, but my husband tells me that would be unprofessional. So it's also a party room and an entertaining room. And we've had Easters in here with all the family as well. And I put this picture of my father up for the 50th wedding lunch, and he's asked me to keep it because he, quote, thinks people would like to see what he looks like when he was younger. So that's why it's still there. And this sort of breakout area is lovely. You can make yourself a cup of tea, and I always dehydrate lemons and oranges, and we have jammy Dodger biscuits, and people on a course can sit and chat and sit by the fire on a cold winter's day. So Master of the Art on a typical day, I mean, there is no typical day, obviously, but say you were coming on our paint finishes workshop, you'd arrive at about 10 a.m. I'd welcome you here. You'd make yourself a tea or a coffee at our lovely station over there. And then you would sit down, we'd give you an introduction to what we do here in the day ahead. You'd do some wonderful creating, which anyone can do. It's not art, it's craft, I promise. And then I'd welcome you back into the house. You'd have homemade organic lunches and teas, and you'd leave at about 4 o'clock. So that's different on the same format for every course, whether it be one day, whether it be us. There's a list over there. We have about 40 workshops on at the moment, from traditional gilding, paint finishes, lino printing, oil painting, flowers, gathered lampshades, hand-painted lampshades. We've got amazing cooking demonstrations, which I'm really excited about, with Jane Lovett in November, willow weaving and wax paper flowers. But we're ever evolving. I'm always talking to new people about what they want to do and where they want to come. And my father absolutely loves all these new crafts coming here as well. We're very much doing this together and interviewing people together. And he loves it. He said, to fill this space, to fill this creative space with laughter and creativity and groups of friends or people by themselves coming from everywhere, we're just so lucky. I feel so honoured that they give us their time and come and are very much welcomed into the family. And I think what differentiates Master of the Art from lots of other more college-y type places is you're in a learning environment in a school, in a college. Here, you're welcomed into a home. You'll get a lick from the Labrador. You'll get lunch in the house. The boys will be making your cake for tea. So you're very much welcomed into the heart of our family as well. And that's why I don't lie when I say I have made proper friends from doing this. I really have. They're, people I would now call for a chat from meeting them, from coming on our courses. So it's really lucky, really lucky. There's quite a lovely thing over here that was in this sign over here above the sink, was in my father's studio when he first started teaching in Battersea, 50 years ago. So it was there, and we hung it above the sink here, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Roger Newton, decorative finishes, it used to say underneath, but doesn't anymore. And he did these wonderful pelmets as well, gilded paint finished pelmets that we've got up above the window, which everyone always admires, which you can learn how to do. People think they're difficult, and I promise you, if you've had your hand held, they're easy. So all our courses are from the basics. Nobody needs any prior experience at all, and you can come out creating wondrous things. In my opinion, the thing that makes the house a home the most is it not being perfect. It has to be your personality, and there's nothing, I don't think there are any colours that clash if you love them together. Greens, there are no greens that clash, for example, anyway, just look outside the window at nature. But a house is a home if it makes you smile when you walk in it, and if it's full with people you love and friends visiting and cups of tea always on the go. And I think it should evolve with you, because you evolve as a human. You change your tastes and things, and how wonderful that the house can change with you. Thank you so much for coming and visiting us, Homeworthy. I really appreciate it, and I hope you've had a glimpse of our wonderful creative family home. There's one more thing I want to show you before you go, which is this blue plaque on the side of the house, dedicated to Mary Webb, the poet and novelist that lived here. She was born here in 1881. And I feel sometimes that she's around us, smiling at all the creativity that's carrying on here. And it's a history of the house, it's the fabric of the house, and something I don't take lightly. So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.